Chapter 2380, 6 The Vatican's Abnormalities. 1. King Arthur paused, then spoke clearly, each word distinct, reaching the ears of every member of the Knights Templar. Before he left, he said that if anyone tried to leave without permission, no matter how eloquent the reason, it would be considered a betrayal. Do you know what the sin of betraying all of humanity is? Orion and Leibniz's expressions instantly turned extremely ugly. They didn't expect that Zhang Yi had already foreseen this possibility and left such a resolute order. King Arthur, are you also going to heed the commands of that heretic, that chaos, and turn against us with swords? Orion made a last-ditch effort, bringing up the faint historical connection between the papacy and the Knights of the Round Table. A hint of mockery flashed in King Arthur's eyes. He slowly raised the sword of victory and oath in his hand, its golden light illuminating his resolute face. Olé, do you know what you're saying? In this place, we face a common threat, and the value of the covenant is above all else. As he said this, a strange expression suddenly appeared on his face. Furthermore, did you leave here simply because you were afraid of fighting, or did you have some other purpose? The coldness and mockery on his face made Father Orion and Sister Leibniz feel a chill in their hearts. Could it be that our true purpose has already been discovered? Sister Leibniz contacted Father Orion via internal radio. No, that's impossible. Father Orion gritted his teeth. Everything is done in secret. There is absolutely no possibility of it being leaked. It's probably because that chaos guy has chosen to join the pupil organization and become our enemy. That's why these heretics have joined forces to deal with us. So, what should we do? Fight them? But we have more important things to do right now, and we must get out of here as soon as possible. Sister Leibniz sounded somewhat anxious. Father Orion's lips curled into his signature, almost manic smile, his 8 white teeth gleaming coldly like a carnivorous wolf. Then let's crush them as quickly as possible. At the same time, Saladin waved his hand coldly. The Shadow Fiend Legion members behind him spread out as if blending into the shadows, forming an encirclement. Enough with the nonsense, King Arthur and Saladin. You two heretics. If reasoning won't work, then let's settle this with swords. I also want to see if the holy light of the Holy See can illuminate the darkness in your hearts. Father Orion flipped his hands, and a strangely shaped weapon appeared in his hands, the Holy Silver Spear Sword. This weapon combines the features of a pistol and a rapier. The silver gun body has smooth lines and a sharp blade that is nearly half a meter long and gleams with a cold light extends from below the muzzle. The two guns crossed in front of him, forming a sacred cross. I will judge you heretics in God's place. Lord, forgive these lost souls. Sister Leibniz closed her eyes, 2 lines of tears streaming down her face, but when she opened them again, all that remained in her eyes was the warrior's resolute determination. She knew that words were no longer of any use. She suddenly raised the copy of Revelation high above her head and loudly chanted a sacred prayer. A powerful holy light erupted from her like a tidal wave. In the name of the Lord, purify all darkness. Knights Templar, fight for your faith. Don't let any of them leave. King Arthur said calmly. He swung his sword backhand, unleashing a dazzling sword aura with unparalleled power, heading straight for Father Orion. Father Orion threw his head back and burst into maniacal laughter. This most terrifying fanatic of the Holy See, a battle maniac, wielded his silver twin pistols and unleashed a frenzied barrage of fire.
Boom, boom, boom.
In the name of the Holy Spirit, let all heresy be judged. An endless silvery holy light enveloped Father Orion's body. His ability is the simplest and purest enhancement type, but it is enhanced with holy light, which is then used to buff himself. From the silver pistol, massive psionic bullets shot out like a storm, colliding fiercely with King Arthur's sword light. The other superhumans in the vicinity had already tacitly fled. In a battle of this magnitude, anyone caught in the escaping energy blast could be killed. Shadow Fiend, the hunt begins. Saladin's voice carried a chilling, killing intent. The Dark Sun Forest was the perfect battlefield for him. Beneath the wide black robe, shadows spread rapidly, covering the entire surrounding land and sinking into darkness. Countless shadows surged forth, transforming into shadow demon assassins clad in black cloaks. They emerged silently from the ground and from the air, heading straight for the members of the Templar Order. In an instant, holy light, golden light, and shadows clashed violently at the edge of the Dark Sun Forest. The Knights of the Round Table's frontal charge, the Shadow Fiend Legion's eerie attacks, and the Templar Knights' holy light defense and undead curse intertwined, resulting in a brutal and chaotic battle. Former allies who once stood side by side are now facing each other in battle on this cursed land, driven by different choices and beliefs. The sounds of clashing swords, chanting sacred words, tearing shadows, and screams of the dying shattered the deathly silence at the edge of the forest, playing a tragic song of betrayal and perseverance. All of this was quietly swallowed up by the thick black fog, as if it were just another insignificant episode in this land of eternal despair. At the edge of the Dark Sun Forest, the flames of war have already raged. In the midst of the chaotic battle between the Knights Templar, the Knights of the Round Table, and the Shadow Demon Legion, two of the most powerful auras locked onto each other like magnets, Disciplined Priest Orion and Knight King Arthur. Orion's silver-white combat uniform, adorned with gold patterns, looked sacred and noble, reflecting a cold luster in the dim light. The cloak embroidered with a red cross moved without wind due to his surging power. The compassion and feigned composure on his face had vanished, replaced by an enraged, almost fanatical rage. Zhang Yi's prophecy and King Arthur's obstruction were, in his eyes, blatant provocations against the dignity of the Holy See and against his personal decisions. The Holy Silver Spear roared furiously, unleashing a barrage of enormous, star-like silver psionic bullets that rained down on King Arthur. But all of this was no match for King Arthur's single, gentle sword strike. All the bullet comments were intercepted, and an energy storm struck, blasting Father Orion back hundreds of meters. Your strength has improved to this level? It seems that your trip to Atlantis has brought you quite a bit of gains. But, Arthur, how dare you obstruct the Lord's servant from carrying out his sacred mission? You will surely bear the sin of blasphemy. Chapter 2387 The Vatican's Abnormalities 2. Orion's voice was like thunder, with a metallic, scraping quality, quite different from his usual solemn image. Suddenly, a burst of silver light erupted before him. Pope Alexander X, who was given a copy of the Book of Revelation, revealed it to him, and holy light shone upon his body. During their brief encounter, he realized that he was no match for King Arthur. So he used this trump card. Although it is only a copy of the Apocalypse, it can draw upon the original power of the Apocalypse held by the Pope. It draws upon the purest faith power accumulated over thousands of years by the entire Junjing sect. A holy light, far more domineering and intense than when Leibniz used it, suddenly erupted. In the name of the Holy Spirit. He roared in a low voice, and his superpower index soared wildly with his roar, eventually stabilizing at 42,000 points. The overwhelming holy light was not a gentle protection, but rather like a burning white flame that enveloped him, carrying an absolute exclusivity of those who obey me prosper, those who defy me perish. His eyes also turned a pure, bright white, filled with unquestionable majesty and a hint of hidden violence. Heretics, face judgment. Orion roared and fired his gun. Bang, bang, bang. This is a superpowered bullet infused with a berserk holy light. Each bullet leaving the barrel leaves a dazzling white trail, like a miniature meteor. Not only was it incredibly fast, but it also possessed multiple properties such as penetration, purification, and even explosion, instantly covering the area where King Arthur was located. Faced with the barrage of holy light, King Arthur did not choose to confront it head-on. Instead, he shifted his footwork, his figure weaving through the gaps in the barrage like a ghost. The sword of victory and oath shone with a blazing light in his hand, unleashing a swift and deadly strike that precisely deflected unavoidable bullets. The sword blade collided with the holy light bullet, exploding into dazzling halos of light. Father Orion, is your faith so unquestionable that you would even turn your sword against your allies? King Arthur's voice maintained its aristocratic calm, but the disappointment and sharpness within it were already evident. Shut up. Heretics are not qualified to talk about faith. Orion's volatile temper was on full display at this moment. Seeing that the range suppression was not effective immediately, he launched a direct charge. His massive body unleashed a speed disproportionate to his size. With the holy silver spear in front of him, he transformed into a silver lightning bolt, piercing straight for King Arthur's chest. The sharp blade at the tip of the spear tore through the air, emitting a piercing whistling sound. Stubborn to the end, King Arthur's eyes narrowed. He knew words were useless. He took a deep breath, and his aura suddenly shifted. A vast, majestic realm, seemingly carrying the will of all the people of Britannia, expanded outwards from him. The world of the king. This realm is not a direct energy impact, but it carries unparalleled spiritual oppression and rule suppression. This is King Arthur's most powerful ability, to indiscriminately weaken all enemies with his royal majesty, creating a field of suppression. Within the king's domain, Orion was horrified to discover that the holy flames burning around him seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force, becoming somewhat sluggish, and even the flow of energy within his body was affected. This is a suppression of personal status, a challenge of royal power to divine authority. Humph! How could a false king's domain suppress the holy radiance of a true god? Orion roared, forcefully activating his holy light to counteract the suppression of the domain, and his momentum only increased. He was running at top speed, his twin pistols firing a dense barrage of holy silver bullets, each bullet transforming into a giant star that filled a large expanse of the sky ahead. On the vast and boundless battlefield, with only the two of them, the storm caused by the collision of their alien energies was enough to destroy everything. King Arthur's sword swept across like a galaxy, and when the two different forces came into contact, a tremendous explosion occurred. Even though the power of a black bishop is far inferior to Zhang Yi's current level, it is still at a near first-class level on Earth. Call out. Father Orion, wielding two pistols, charged forward and surprisingly chose to confront King Arthur in close combat. The Holy Silver Spear Sword is a weapon usable in both melee and ranged combat. Judging from his muscular physique, he is equally keen on close-range combat, cutting enemies to pieces with his sword rather than tearing them apart with a spear. Two black bishop-level inhumans approached in an instant. Father Orion grinned maliciously, clenching his silvery white teeth, his muscles bulging. A silver aura of, "In the name of the Holy Spirit," enveloped his entire body, the purest and most violent empowerment. He struggled to raise his right arm, aimed the silver spear at King Arthur's head, and smashed it down. Clang! The blade of the Holy Silver Spear Sword clashed fiercely with the edge of the Sword of Victory Oath. A deafening roar accompanied by a visible shockwave spread out in a ring, sending the fighting crowd thousands of meters away flying. Orion's fighting style is extremely wild. If he misses a strike, he immediately changes tactics with his gun and sword. Sometimes thrusting, sometimes slashing, gunshots boomed, firing tricky holy light bullets to interfere. Sometimes sharp blades flew, each move aimed at King Arthur's vitals. This is gun fu. Within a small space, they launch attacks simultaneously with both guns and swords, making it impossible to defend against. His left hand wasn't idle either. A silver judgment-throwing knife fell from his sleeve. In the brief interval between reloading and attacking, the knife shot out with an almost supernatural speed. Ha! He flung out more than a dozen throwing knives with incredible speed and overwhelming power. As a complement to close combat, these throwing knives are ruthless and sharp, full of violent beauty. When throwing knives, it feels as wild as throwing grenades. King Arthur then demonstrated his honed swordsmanship. The king's sword in his hands was like an extension of his body. Every parry and every swing was precise, efficient, and full of power. His steps were steady, and his figure moved nimbly amidst Orion's storm of attacks. Although he was slightly on the defensive, he defended flawlessly. The king's domain constantly disrupted Orion's state, weakening his offensive. All you can do is dodge? Where's your kingly spirit? Unable to break through, Orion grew increasingly impatient. After his powerful slash was parried by King Arthur, he suddenly took a half-step back. He transferred the holy silver spear to his left hand to continue firing and suppressing the enemy, while his right hand made a grasping motion in the air, and a full 8 judgment throwing knives floated in front of him, their tips all pointing at King Arthur. Holy light was highly compressed within them, emitting a dangerous hum. Divine judgment, octet. He crossed his hands and forcefully flung out 8 throwing knives. Whoosh whoosh. The 8 throwing knives transformed into 8 white lightning bolts that tore through space, sealing off all of King Arthur's escape routes from different angles and along different trajectories. Chapter 2388 The Vatican's Abnormalities 3. The throwing knife, carrying the dual will of purification and destruction, shot forth with tremendous force. Faced with this decisive blow, King Arthur finally held nothing back. He gripped the sword of victory tightly with both hands, holding it upright in front of him, and a dazzling golden light burst forth from his body, and the sword like the sun. The power of the king's domain was pushed to its limit, as if countless phantoms of his subjects were praying and shouting behind him, gathering their faith into the king's sword. In the name of the King of Britannia, this sword shall decide victory. Excalibur. He roared, unleashing the power he had accumulated to its peak, along with the legendary Holy Sword, and unleashed a golden sword aura that traversed the heavens and earth. The sword energy, like a roaring torrent of light, met the 8 white lightning bolts head-on. There were no shortcuts, only the purest and most extreme clash of power and conviction. Rumble. It was as if a sun had exploded on the spot. The intense light temporarily blinded everyone, and a terrifying energy storm swept in all directions, lowering the ground by 3 feet. Several knights who were nearby were blown away. As the light gradually faded, King Arthur was seen standing with his sword, slightly out of breath, the light of the sword of victory dimming. Orion knelt on the ground, his holy silver spear supporting him, a trickle of blood spilling from the corner of his mouth. The 8 judgment throwing knives in front of him had shattered, turning into specks of fluorescent light and dissipating. He stared at King Arthur in disbelief, his eyes filled with shock and an even more intense rage. In the first round of head-on confrontation, even with the use of the Apocalypse copy, how could he still be unable to win? Just how strong is Arthur Pandoragon? King Arthur, you. Orion struggled to stand up. King Arthur took a deep breath and pointed his sword at Orion. The voice carried an undeniable authority. Olian, surrender. To sacrifice the entire Templar order for pointless pride is not the act of a wise man. Don't even think about it. Orion gritted his teeth, and the holy light around him began to burn erratically again, clearly preparing to launch an even more frenzied counterattack. Even at the risk of death, he must leave this place today and head to the Dark Moon Empire, the abyss from which everything was born. The task assigned to him by His Holiness the Pope is one he must complete. Death.
What's so scary about that?
It's just returning to God's kingdom. That's his wish. He had no choice but to die for the Holy War. The duel between the Holy Lance and the King's Sword is far from over. This internal struggle, born of beliefs and choices, has been far more brutal than the struggle against external enemies. Not far from the battlefield of King Arthur and Orion, filled with holy light and royal might, another battle, stylistically different yet equally deadly, unfolds amidst shadows and lamentations. Saladin, the emperor of the Khotan Empire, faced off against Sister Leibniz of the monarchical church. Saladin maintained his aloof and arrogant demeanor, and even on the battlefield, his movements as he adjusted his cuffs remained elegant and composed. However, his deep eyes gleamed with a sharp light like that of a hawk. Upon returning from the land sealed by Mammon, he not only brought back abundant resources, but his strength also improved to an ability index of 40,000 points. But at this moment, the confidence he relies on is not just that. Sister Leibniz clasped her hands together, closed her eyes, and shed clear tears. She murmured a prayer, while a copy of the Book of Revelation, suspended in front of her, radiated a divine light. Faintly, from the copy of Revelation came a prayer that resonated with her. Over thousands of years, the most devout believers of the Holy See have gathered their spiritual imprints and the power of their faith here. At this moment, it transformed into Leibniz's own power. The essence of the power of the universe is fragments of ether, the power of thought. Simply put, it is the power of, I think, using thought to change all matter in the universe, which is its true means of application. Combat, to destroy the enemy, is merely its most inferior method of use. Sister Leibniz disliked fighting, but for the sake of the papacy's millennium-long plan, she had no choice but to fight. Thinking of this, her grief became even heavier, and the tears she shed were truly heartfelt. Her aura rose steadily, and a chilling sense of misfortune spread around her like a plague. A sacred relic of the Holy See? It's just a copy of the Book of Revelation, nothing special. In terms of the power of faith, have we, the followers of the Assassins, ever lost to your Holy See? Saladin remained remarkably calm about this. As monotheistic religions, the Assassins and the Royalist Church share a common origin, the original Messianic sect. Therefore, they knew the Holy See very well. In terms of the number of followers, both the Assassins and Baratas can rival the papacy. Teacher, let's begin? Saladin turned to the old man behind him and spoke. Not far behind him, an old man wearing a crimson robe and a turban with flame patterns stood quietly. He held in his hands a seemingly ordinary black stone that exuded an ancient and mysterious aura, the Kaaba Black Stone, a sacred relic of Zoroastrianism. The sage herald murmured ancient hymns praising fire. A faint, water-like light rippled across the surface of the black stone, and a powerful and pure force of faith crossed space, continuously pouring into Saladin's body. With the boost from the black stone, Saladin's aura surged at a visible speed, and the shadow energy surrounding him became increasingly viscous and profound, eventually stabilizing at a terrifying 44,000 points. Saladin's figure became even darker, his entire being blending into the surrounding environment like thick ink. The earth began to turn dark, and the surrounding world was also black. The realm unfolds, the land of shadows. Saladin, now of the Black Archbishop rank, has received a tremendous boost in his abilities. His figure was shrouded in shadow, and only a corner of his fluttering robe could be vaguely seen. He was mysterious and powerful, as if he had become the ruler of this dark world. A cold yet majestic voice came from all directions, from the sky and the earth, from every possible angle. The shadows shroud not only the sky. Sister, give up your futile resistance. In the absolute realm of shadows, mourning is nothing but a pale and powerless act. Sister Leibniz stood silently, her compassionate face now shrouded in an unyielding sorrow and resolute determination. She was not intimidated by Saladin's terrifying aura. She simply held the heavy copy of the Book of Revelation to her chest, as if it were the most precious relic in the world. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.